Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Friday forum. This is the very first forum that we're hosting, and I'm very glad to be here with all of you and to talk about issues that are really pertinent to our world and our lives today. My name is Cyndy McDonald. I'm an educational consultant and entrepreneur in Central California. And my co-host today is Jamie Dickinson from Charleston, West Virginia. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Cyndy.
I'm glad to have you here. And we also have Krista Green, and she is going to be assisting us. We're glad to have her here to help with the questions and things that we know are going to be flooding in. So we thought we would have, a couple dozen people interested in talking about this, but we have over 400 people that have registered for this forum. And I think it's all because we need to talk about both education and business. So I'm the education person, Jamie's the business person, and we're going to share with you some, our goal is to cut through the chase, kind of give you the highlights and, distill the news from the week. We're going to try and do this every Friday and then have time to turn it into a discussion and take questions. We know we're not going to get to all questions today, so we'll highlight the top questions and we'll bring those back to you next week. So if you're, as you're joining us, please use the question and answer portion to put in your questions. We're not going to be able to answer questions if you use the chat. So just a little highlight on that so that we can make this most productive for you and everyone else. So any other things you want to add, Jamie?
No, I just am so happy that we have that many people that are interested, and we all know that we're stuck in our houses. And the way I've looked at it is I've had to use this as productive time to really delve into this new CARES Act and how did it affect my business. So it's really nice that like all this research that I've done now, I get to share it with you all. So thanks for including me. I really appreciate it.
Well, Jamie, I'm so glad you've done this because I wouldn't have ever even been able to make heads or tails of it. So we're definitely going to give everybody the 1-2. So we'll be able to be the yin and yang. How does that sound?
Perfect.
All right. So let's get started. We want to find out who you are. And so I've just got a couple of polls. A few of you probably were on the forum we did 2 weeks ago, and I did a whole series of polls. Today we've only got 2. So, but I've got some highlights and things. But we want to know a little bit about who you are. So I'm going to launch this first poll, and I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where do you come from? So that we can tailor our comments and meet your needs in this Friday poll. And if the audio isn't coming through right or the visual or anything, just put those in the question and answer and let us know. And Krista, please let us know if people aren't being able to hear us. All right, so we've got 78% people who have completed the poll. We would really like to see who we have and what your needs are. So we're up to 84%. I'm going to give you a couple of more minutes. And I see we've got a couple of raised hands, and Krista will take care of that. All right, so we're at 87%. Keep going, guys. We know who you are. I'm going to count down to, we're at 90%. So I'm going to give you 5 more to the count of 5. 5.
All right, we have some people are saying they can't see the poll.
They can't see it? If you cannot see it, check on the bottom of your screen and find the Zoom, like the little camera, and click on that. Because the poll is probably underneath our pictures.
Oh, Krista's answering them.
Okay.
Okay,
All
so
right.
that's good.
Yeah, so, and that happens, this is kind of a tip for you. Anytime you're in a Zoom meeting, you know, any of the webinars, lots of webinars going on right now. So we're at 93%. Okay, so I'm going to end it. And it looks like 89% of you, let me share the results. So mostly we have IECs. So we do have some high school professionals, some college professionals, some students, and business professionals. I want to tell you, if you're an IEC, you're also a business professional. And I'm not going to be the one that's going to drive that home. Jamie's going to drive that home for you. So we're really glad to have you here, and encourage you to share this with lots of other people that you know, especially as we do these upcoming forums. All right, so Jamie, let's do the next poll. And this is those of you that, you know, for all of you that are especially independent or a business professional, we want to look at, here, let's turn this off. And maybe the other one didn't get, okay, it looks like, let's do this. It looks like the other poll didn't get posted. So,
well, you know what, if you want to do it when, in a little bit, like before I go, because that one's really more for me as to how many employees they have, right? And then I want to remind them, don't include 1099 people in their employees, because 1099 people are their own people. So when Cyndy does the poll for your number of employees, because that'll just help me kind of tailor the presentation, don't include 1099 people.
Right. Well, I was just going to have people raise their hands. So,
okay.
So then, because basically we have a yes or no question. And if you have employees, well, I'm going to lower all the hands right now. So if you still have a question, you know, raise it in just a minute. But I'm going to lower all the hands. If you have employees, raise your hand. And as Jamie said, don't include, you know, 1099. We're going to talk about them. She's going to talk about them, but they're not they fall into a different category. So Jamie, I don't know, can you see how the hands are raised?
No, I can't.
There's probably, I would say, about a third of our participants, between a third and a quarter, that have employees.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now, so nothing happened this week, right? Nothing's going on. We're all just kind of sitting at home and watching Netflix. You know, it's just every day it's just been so crazy. So I am going to start, and I'm just going to share with you some highlights and what's from a global bird's eye perspective. And then I definitely want to see what your perspectives are as well. Okay, so let's do, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to swap. And now I'm going to share my screen. And let's see. Okay. All right. It always covers up. Okay, so we're going to share my screen. Okay, are you guys seeing my screen? Okay. Okay. All right. So, so this is our Friday forum. I'm titling it Education and Entrepreneurs, because we all are entrepreneurs in one way or another. And whoops. And this is being hosted by myself, Cyndy McDonald. I live in Central California, and Jamie Dickinson. And here's a little bit of information about you, about us, for you. I've been an education consultant for over 30 years. I've worked in the high schools and the middle schools. I've founded 2 companies, one technology company, my own consulting company, and also a nonprofit organization. I've done a lot of interviews. I've probably interviewed over 100 people over the last 4 years. So I have my own YouTube channel. And And now I'm starting a new enterprise called All About Your Next Steps. And I'm going to be doing online training for entrepreneurs and educators and coaching. So that gives you a little bit about me. And then my co-host, Jamie Dickinson, she's an MBA, CEP. She's got a degree in accounting and an MBA with an emphasis in finance. She's been an educational consultant for almost as many years as I have been. And she's went through the UCLA program. She's a small business person of the year. And, you know, she is my go-to person. When I have a business question, I go to Jamie because I know she's going to give it to me straight and she understands where I'm coming from. So that's why I think we make a really dynamic partnership together. So let's go to, what do you do when schools are closed? Well, some people go to Minecraft and build their own campus. So you just, you know, everybody is kind of in this world of all together that we've never imagined. We never, you know, could have even foretold that this would happen. So what are we looking at and what's the future going to hold? You know, I don't know. Maybe Minecraft has the answer. We'll see. But for our Friday forums, we want to give these 4 goals. Our goal is to give you a bird's eye view of the week's news. You know, lots of stuff's coming up and lots of things are happening. And so we want to cut through the clutter of the week's news, kind of give you an overview. So we'll spend a few minutes doing that. We're also going to give you our personal take on the news. You know, how do we see it? I've got some perspectives. I know Jamie's got perspectives. So, you know, I hope that enhances what you're looking for. So we're going to give our personal perspective. I see a question coming up. Will the PowerPoint be shared? Yes, I'll post it on cindymcdonald.com so that you can access it there. So, yep, we'll share it. We'll be able to share it. And I have some blogs too that supplement the high level news that we're doing. So we hope you want to join us each week, and we hope that you'll share information and invite other people. And we're just gonna, Jamie and I are just gonna do this until we don't need it anymore. So that's our goal, and I hope you'll want to join us. So, and I'm just gonna talk about the education part for just probably about 10 minutes or so. And then I'm gonna turn it over, and the bulk of what we're gonna talk about is the business side as well, so that you understand what you're going through, what many of the parents of your students are going through, what, you know, our whole economy, how it's being impacted, and what are some of what the care package looks like. But so let's talk about it from a bird's eye view. College students have worries. I mean, we're dealing with current college students, upcoming college students, colleges, all these things. And I found if you don't track inside higher education, the publication, they had a lot of, right now there's just tons of great articles. So I pulled this from one of the studies that they cited, and 64% of the students are worried about doing things online. How do I maintain focus? How do I maintain discipline? It's really hard to do it, especially since I'm not on campus. I'm at home. I'm surrounded by, you know, my family and other people, and I'm just out of my element now. So 64% are worried about that. 50% obviously are worried about losing their normal social interactions. They don't get to have lunch with people. 45% getting good grades. They're worried about their internet not being good enough to support online learning. Boy, are we seeing that right now. Everybody's using the internet. Everybody's using Zoom and GoToMeeting and such. So it really is bogging down the system. And so that's a very legitimate concern. And, you know, 60% felt at least somewhat prepared for the switch. So maybe they've done some online classes when they were in high school, or so many colleges, universities offer courses online, or they're supplementing through community college or other resources. So at least, you know, this generation of students is prepared for this kind of, and, you know, they're digital natives, so it's not something totally foreign to them. What I find very interesting is that the AP tests, when we talk about that, I mean, those are designed so students can take them on their phones. So they're feeling at least prepared. So as I look at this data, I'm thinking, and I'm hoping you're thinking too, it's like, what is the impact? What is this going to mean? My prediction, it's Cindy's, prediction is there are probably going to be more hybrid offerings at colleges. And, they're going to see that students can handle this. Many colleges, for example, Lynn University in Florida does a lot of this already. And so, there's going to be more of that. And also colleges are going to find they're going to have to strengthen that on-campus experience. And I'm not talking about more climbing walls or wading pools. What other things are they going to be able to do to strengthen those on-campus experiences to help with recruitment? Because if students can find they can learn online and take instructions and have that great professor, well, what else is the campus experience going to bring? So I think that's one thing that from a college perspective, a college student perspective. What about colleges? And we heard a lot of discussion about this. Right now, the polls say that colleges are estimating a 15% drop in the overall student enrollment next year. 25% of that is going to come from international student enrollment decline. So that's a significant, especially for colleges who don't meet their May 1 enrollment targets and don't fill their classes every year. That's going to be a significant financial hit. So how is that going to impact us? Wait lists. We are expecting people to be going to wait lists. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Extended deposit deadlines. We're already seeing that. And I've got data on that. What about student poaching with the NACAC change in the CEPP, the principles of practice? It's really opened it up where students can be recruited at many different times. So are we going to see more of that? I expect we will. And what about revised financial aid offers? Are they going to be able to offer more money, less money? Their investments and endowments have taken a hit, just like retirement and 529 plans. So what is the impact? Right now we don't have any answers really, but we're thinking about what is this going to look like? So those are the college worries and the student worries. Now, what about the graduating senior worries? And I thought this poll was very interesting because we're all talking to our students, we're all talking to our parents, so we're hearing these firsthand. That 1 in 6 prospective student is near the point of giving up on going to college next fall. They're even wondering if they are going to be going to, if the campuses are going to be open. And right now, we don't know. 17% are likely to take a gap year or attend some kind of a program part-time. How is that going to impact the future? And how is that going to impact the next year when you have 2 classes trying to apply? 2/3 of graduating seniors are concerned they might need to change their first choice college. They're excited about going to college A, but they might have to, fall back to college B because of the pandemic. 21% of the families can't afford their first choice college. And almost 50% of the students said because of COVID-19 that they're more interested in taking an online program or course during college. So it's opening up that, the paradigm is shifting. How far is it going to shift? And will it come back? I don't know. So impact, students are probably going to stay closer to home. You're going to have a higher percentage of enrollment at community colleges. You're going to have a higher percent opt to do gap years. But colleges are going to have to prepare for that, and they're going to have to maybe put in limits and not accept deferrals for gap years. This is where keeping your ear to the ground in your area, you're going to know what colleges in your area or your state and region are going to cover too. I did a webinar for University of California, Santa Barbara, and they said they very rarely grant deferrals for a year. They'll do it for medical reasons and some other very strong reasons, but it's pretty much on a case-by-case basis. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. So Jamie, do you have any thoughts on these graduating senior worries?
Well, what I've been hearing from my people is my parents want these kids closer to home. they're all worried that like they've had like a 30% drop in their 529 plans, their retirement plans. I mean, the market has just gone crazy. And so parents are very afraid, one, not only to send their kids out into this world to get this virus, but you know, I think more now than ever, parents are very concerned about money. So I'm doing like my wrap up sessions in the month of April with all my seniors. And I've had, last week, I had 4 appointments in one day, and every student I had cried. Every single one cried. So they're sad over their prom, they're sad over graduation, they're sad because their parents, like that, where you said families can no longer pick their first choice school. I'm seeing a lot of that. So, I mean, it's that, and then the seniors are seniors that we've had in the past who are graduating from college this year. They're sad. I just think in this whole world of uncertainty, we're just going to have to take it day by day as an educational consultant to see where it all goes.
Yeah, yeah. It's, yeah, we're in a very much in uncharted territory, and it's, you know, no one has the answers. And so, yeah, we're gonna see the repercussions of this over probably, I mean, who knows, at least for the next 4 years, if
And
not
you know
longer.
what, Cyndy, I mean, can you imagine what the colleges are going for? I mean, as much as my heart hurts for our kids and our parents, I can't even imagine that they are like having to refund money from this year. Like, what are they doing for summer? I mean, to be honest with you, I think the colleges are probably in a much bigger crisis than we can only imagine. It's just, the whole thing is set. This virus, other than Bill Gates, who called it a few years ago, I don't know how anybody could have ever expected this. And the sad part is, I don't know about everybody else, but January and February were the best 2 months I'd had in a long, long time. And I was so hopeful. And so you just can't get your hopes up because you just never know what's around the corner.
Right, right. Krista, it looks like we have a few questions. Are there any that we should address right now?
Right now, a lot are asking about the sources for all this information. And there's a few as far as asking about juniors for the class of 2021. But okay. I think they're now focused on where are these sources so they can state it later.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll be posting this. When I post this on the this PowerPoint, I'll post the sources as well. So that's absolutely, because then this, when you have information that you can share with families, then it becomes more than just your voice. It becomes, you know, an outside voice, and that gives you credibility. So absolutely, that makes sense. So college students, some other things that are going on is they're having partial refunds of tuition. Some schools are giving it, some schools are not. What do you do? And there's even lawsuits that have already been filed. There's a suit in Arizona, you know, charging the public schools in Arizona to refund part of tuition, refunds of room and board. Is it going to get refunded? Is it going to credit toward room and board next year? You know, other refunds. I haven't heard of other colleges offer refunds, but they might be offering other kinds of refunds. And I just threw this one in here. Even student athletes, the Ivy Leagues said, okay, just because your year got cut in half, basically, you're not getting your eligibility as an athlete extended. So, you know, there are lots of repercussions that you don't even think about, and the ripple effect can be quite extensive. So we're going to be seeing more about that. Does it going to change financial aid award? Probably. Can they get credit for next year? I don't know. I know California, I'm talking about those kinds of things, and students can drop classes and then they can get refunds, and, you know, just creating the logistics of all that is quite complicated. So sometimes things sound simple, like, oh, we'll just give them refunds, but they're not so simple. So those are things to be seen. So, okay, so that's just kind of the bird's eye view. This is how the overview is looking. And I'm going to try and just give you that bird's eye view every week. So now what about those particular things about seniors, especially and juniors? So here are the admissions upsets that I call. So 1,000+ universities worldwide, and this is on the college admission status update on the NACAC website. So I just summarized them. You can go to this and look for the individual colleges. You can download it as an Excel spreadsheet and look at it. But I just thought it was interesting. We all hear all the colleges are doing this. Are they open to admissions events? No. You know, over 900 colleges say, nope, no, come to campus. Are they doing admissions events? Many still are, and often they're virtual events. If they say yes out of that 95, a lot of times they're virtual events, which I think is a great idea. Over 600 colleges have changed their deposit deadlines, and these are worldwide. So this includes colleges in other countries as well. And so looking at that and what those are, but there's a lot of changes, and this has to do with, are we going to get our class enrolled? We're not sure. Some colleges and especially systems are not changing their deadlines, but they're being flexible. So for example, the University of California system, they're keeping the May 1. You have to submit your intent to enroll by May 1, but if there's a reason that you can't, they'll be flexible, but you just have to contact them. So that is definitely one, you know, perspective to have is are all the deposits changing? Not necessarily, but those that are, I went through the list, and what are the dates? What are they changing to? Well, you can see most of them are just postponing it a month to June 1st. But there's a few that are going between June 15th and 30th and all the way into September. So, you know, throughout the summer, they're going to have things. And again, even in past years, when we had a firm universal reply date of May 1, you know, if students had a reason to go past May 1, then they could, you know, request it. And if the school doesn't have their class full, there's always a list, and you can go to that list. And last year I had a situation where I had a student who had been admitted to a public school and was planning on going to public school. He didn't fill in a form, the right form on May 1st. And so he got kicked out. So then we had to go back to his private schools and say, hey, do you still have some room? And do you still have your scholarship available? Fortunately for the student, the answer to both of those was yes. And he eventually ended up back at his public school, but the private schools were still willing to work with him. So the dates vary. Mostly it's going to be June 1. So if parents are asking you, there are varied dates, but for the most part, it's probably going to be a month. So are you finding anything? What are you finding back there in your West Virginia and your area?
No, most people are going to, most people have heard that have changed to June 1st.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, that's kind of what.
And to be honest with you, that may go even further if we still, if, you know, if we're not back open and back to work, and it may go. I think we're all just in a wait and see kind of mode.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt them to push the date back if they don't have enough people enrolled, and it doesn't hurt to push the date back in order to get the class that they need. So,
and you know, I think another thing what you're going to have is whether it's ethical or not ethical, because a lot of these seniors have not been able to visit, even if these colleges are making people decide by May 1st. I bet you got a lot of people double deposit this year.
Yeah, I bet, yes, I agree with you. And with the changes in the, you know, requirements from the NACAC ethics and standards, it's going to encourage that too. Yeah.
Because like some of these kids are admitted to schools with great offers, and they haven't even visited yet. Like I have a student who was admitted to Arizona State, got a great offer. They were planning on going over spring break. Well, you know, he's not even going to be able to see it. That's a long way from West Virginia to go. So, you know, I think that, you know, it's kind of scary just to go to university sight unseen because you got good money out of them, right? So, I think it's going to be an interesting summer.
Yeah. And what about admissions testing? So this is things that really impact our rising seniors, our current juniors. Lots of colleges have announced modifications to the test policy. And I have put together detailed information about this. I've put them in states, I've put them in how competitive, so you can look in the states and the areas where your students typically apply. But I just wanted to summarize it here, but this is a blog that I just posted. Right now, around 67 colleges have announced modifications to their test policy. So not everybody's doing it. There's 15 colleges that are highly competitive, you know, between a 4 and 30%. Pomona College just added, Williams College just added, Vassar. I mean, there are a lot of schools. Harvard's on the list, but they say don't be concerned with not testing multiple times. That's easy for them to say, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, kids and students are going to be concerned because they're not going to be able to show their best foot forward. And then Harvard also says, oh, you're not going to be penalized if you're not submitting AP or SAT subjects. So, you know, in the long term, you know, how are students going to differentiate themselves if they don't have test scores? So that's going to be another big topic. But, you know, it's not just the easy entries colleges. Many of these are now saying we're going test optional. We're going to try it for 3 years, or we're going to go test optional like University of Oregon and Oregon State. And, you know, the timing came out during this time. So some schools may try this and then just continue on it. So we'll have to wait and see how that changes the landscape. But I thought it was interesting that we do have some highly competitive, and it's about half and half when you split the 3 categories. You combine 4 to 60%. You know, that's even more than the 34 and the higher acceptance rates. So there are definitely changes there, and we're going to see, but I think there are not as many. Sometimes we have a feeling like, oh, everybody's going to do it. But what I do say is, here's the schools that I have on the watch list. And if you're in any of these areas or have experience with any of these, like Ivy League, other highly competitive universities, you know, send me a note, you know, drop me a line. But, you know, what happens? The state of Florida, University of Texas, they haven't announced anything yet. Last time I looked, SUNY system, any schools like University of California has said they're going to waive test scores. University of North Carolina system have said they're going to waive test scores. University of Georgia system has said they're going to waive test scores. So if we have another set of large systems come into this, then that's going to really double or triple the number of schools that are waiving test scores. So CTCL, last time I looked, there weren't any CTCL on the list, but again, that can change day to day. So our partner, the people who are keeping track of all this, is Apple Ruth. So if you're not familiar with Apple Ruth Test Prep, I would encourage you. Jed Appleruth is a phenomenal writer. He's got done test preparation for many, many years. And so here's the link where you can go to keep track. And they're going to keep a list. And I've been emailing them, and they'll put a date, so you'll be able to tell which ones have been added when. And this is where I'm going to get my data. And I would encourage you to, because they'll list exactly what's the policy and give you the link, so you can go and research it yourself. So any thoughts on that, Jamie?
No, I just think that, like I say, I think that we're all just going to have to wait and watch and see. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on when this virus calms down. I mean, you know, I mean, that's kind of like where I was, you know, when I woke up the first day after every business that I have was shut down, and I'm so used to like going, you know, full blast all day. I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I was like, there's no way to worry about all this. I mean, it's going to unfold as it is, because the colleges and everybody are in the same ship we are. That's how come I was like, well, the one thing we can do is focus on our own businesses. And so, but I think this is very good. And I'm so glad that Jed is keeping up with the policy updates. So I don't have to, so I can just go there and see what he's doing.
Yeah, me too. So I'm seeing quite a few questions come in about testing and some comments from other people that I know are very well versed in test prep. So I'm going to go through AP and then we can talk about some of these, and then we'll be going into the business side of this. So how are we doing? Okay. All right. Most of you know, I think all of us know, the AP tests are now going online. The dates were released last week. They've shifted a week, basically, you know, more or less. It starts now May 11th. I think before they were supposed to start around May 4th, and they're going to go to Friday, May 22nd. What's really different, now they're 45 minutes online open response tests. Now they can take 3 tests in a day. Before they were taking 2 tests in a day, but they were what, 2 to 3 hour tests? But they can start as early as 6 a.m. Really? Really? We're gonna have students in Hawaii take an AP test at 6 a.m. and now they're gonna go as late as 8 p.m., which is Greenwich Mean Term. And I'm not even really sure where that applies, but I don't know. I can see kids taking tests as late as 8 p.m., much more than taking them as early as 6 a.m. But one of the things I'm encouraging my students to do is really take advantage of this, because the test practice out there is phenomenal that the College Board has put out. The YouTube videos, I looked at them. I talked to one of my students yesterday and said, have you watched any of these? He said, yeah, I've watched a few. They're pretty good. And so these are just 2 of the 32 subjects. There were 19 videos on YouTube. They've both had over 2,000 views. They run in time between, 30 minutes to 50 minutes. I think they're all under an hour. So they're on demand and live, so students can see what the schedule is and join them. And then there's live stream sessions. When else are our students going to have access to master teachers, AP teachers? They should seize this opportunity and really take advantage of it. Most of them are not spending 8 hours a day on their schoolwork, so they've got time. And I think that's one of the great, treasures that they have right now is they've got time. And parents are saying, how can I keep my kid busy? So doing these AP and this next month, especially preparing for the AP through the resources that have been given, I think are going to be very valuable. So that's one of the silver linings that I see in this testing. One of the questions, and I went to the College Board webinar on this, and they spent a lot of time. And I looked, I don't know if they have it recorded. I'm sure they do. Lisa, if you know how they get to this, that people can go to this recorded, I would highly recommend it. They talked about test security. Is it really going to be secure? They emphasize they're going to have very sophisticated software to deter cheating and validate the identity so that they know the student who's taken that test is really that student. They wouldn't go into real specifics because they don't want people to hack the system and bypass their measures. They've got anti-plagiarism software being utilized. It is an open book, so it's not check the answer. And teachers will get the results. So the teachers will see the responses and they'll be able to say, yeah, that sounds like my student, or no, I don't know what that was. So one of the other side is that students can't just sign up by thinking, oh, well, if it's 45 minutes now, maybe some of my kids who weren't really interested in doing the AP, because here in our area, my students can sign up for an AP class and not take the AP test. In other areas, you have to take the test if you're an AP class, not in this part of California. And so I was thinking, well, maybe some of my students now will change their minds and want to do it. No, they can't do that. They either had to sign up in the spring, in the fall to take it this spring, or they can't take it because that's part of this identity. They've got emails, each student's getting a secure link, it's a personalized link, and so it's too late to get them into the system to do that. So they can't change their minds and now register for an AP that they weren't registered for. So I thought that was interesting, but here's my AP testing if then. So this is my biggest takeaway, and many of you will probably have some other insights to share. but there is no proctor. The students are going to be sitting here taking the test on a computer, and there's going to be a little timer in the corner somewhere. And this is how I understand it. Maybe I understood how they presented this wrong. But if there is no proctor, then how do you keep track of time? In the past, you know, you had a person there who said, okay, tip down your pen, put down your pencil, you're done, right? So students would turn in their tests. So now it's just a little timer that's on their screen. The students have to be their own proctors. They have to know how much time is left. If they, and they emphasize this in the webinar quite frequently, if the students don't submit on time, then the test doesn't count. So who wants to spend 45 minutes on an AP test, get all done, run out of time, and not be able to submit it? So that, to me, is the thing I am going to emphasize the most to my students is, you know, there's no proctor. You're going to have to self-monitor, you know, do something to make sure you know and you get it submitted. So that is, from my take, is the biggest thing. So and then there were more. ID's been canceled. They're going to use coursework up to March. Language tests, check the websites. TOEFL I found interesting. They're going to have at-home testing available. You know, we could talk about ACT some other time and how they're going to pilot online testing come this fall. So those, but you know, there's just so much. So future impact, what's going to look like, wait list. College is already going to the wait list. Many are going to wait until after May 1. For example, University of California said they're going to wait to go to their wait list. Let me put it this way, UC Santa Barbara. Other UCs may go to their wait list sooner, and other colleges same way. You know, are they going to go to the fall? I mean, they may be pulling in people clear into even the end of September. Financial aid, what's this going to look like? People can go in, I talked about this 2 weeks ago, you know, if they've lost money in their investments especially, they can go in and revise their FAFSA now on their assets and then send appeal letters on income to the colleges. And UC Santa Barbara talked about that and how they have an appeal process, and they are expecting, you know, colleges expecting, and they know this is going on. So, you know, what's it going to do about student loans? The student loans payments is now waived for, I think, 6 months, something like that. And then what about refunds and rebates? And class change to admission dates, we don't know. I haven't seen anybody say, oh, they're going to change their ED dates or the EA dates, but that's very likely a possibility. Are they going to change their essay prompts? Common App has said no. University of California has said no. Other schools, have they, like Texas or some of these other schools? If you're hearing of schools that are changing their essay prompts, you know, just let us know. What about GPA calculations? Are they going to count this term or not? We could do a whole session on that, because, for example, in California, the answer is that the students, basically their terms this semester aren't going to count. They're not going to count in their GPA. They're not going to count in their course list. And if they get credit, no credit, it's not going to be a problem. And if you're doing that at UCLA and UC Berkeley, you bet some of these other competitive schools are going to follow suit. So that's one trend we'll want to stay tuned about. Essay ideas. Are we going to get too many COVID-19 essays? Is college going to be back in the fall? And how do you fill the time of students while online with college prep? So that's the thing. I'm going to put together like a top 10 thing for my students on virtual tours, AP prep, you know, college classes they can take, things like that. So that's kind of a highlight and what from the admission side. Jamie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the business, and then we'll bring in some of these questions and come back. And like we said, we know that we can't get to everybody's questions. We're going to highlight the ones that people are asking over and over again, and we'll bring those back next week. We'll have more bird's eye views and just, you know, hit those top points and provide resources and links on our website so that you have places to go. So Jamie, take it away.
Okay, well, we are, I don't know, we've only got 15 minutes left, so.
Oh,
I
how
don't
did that
know.
happen?
I
I talked
don't know.
really fast.
But I would like everybody to take a screenshot of this slide, because these are like the main topics that are coming out of the new CARES Act. And the bill is like 900 pages. And like I said, I really set out to make myself an expert on this act, mainly because I wanted to see how it affected my business. And then as Cyndy and I started talking, I was like, really, I've figured it all out, majority of it. So, let's add this on. This is like such a vast topic that we're going to have a whole lot that we need to talk about. So I'm going to kind of summarize it up, and then if there's anything really particular that you all are interested in, then let Krista know in the Q&A, and then I'll try to address that next time. But these are really like the main topics of the CARES Act. And then I did Cyndy's forum last week as a participant, and I was watching the chat, watching everybody say, are you going to reduce your fees? Which is not on here, but I just thought about it. So, I do that IEC Business Intensive Boot Camp where we just like really delve into your business. And as part of that, we do this whole pricing strategy. So my answer to, if you are going to drop your fees, no, do not drop your fees. And if you feel like you want to give somebody a discount, then while nobody's looking, increase your fee. So like if you say, I'm going to give you a 15% discount because of this, then up your fees 15%. Then when you give them a discount, you're back to where you were. And, I just think that you all are losing a lot of revenue. We're all losing revenue. And I think that you owe it to your clients and your family and their families to stay in business. And I think if you don't watch, you really can put yourself in an even further financial crunch. So I just want everybody to know that, like, I don't feel like you should reduce your fees. And if you do want to, increase them and then reduce them so you're back where you started. So that was just my 2 cents on that from last week. So let's start with unemployment. That's the first thing, and I don't see that up here on the thing. So, but that's the first one that I wanted to talk about. Oh, there we go. So all of you all need to know that you are self-employed, and we realize that 90% of the people on here are IECs, and then the rest are probably employed by someone else. So now this new CARES law made it to where you as self-employed people can now file for unemployment. So yes, I'm self-employed, but I also have a lot of employees, but I still am self-employed. So I applied for unemployment. So if you have not applied for unemployment, please go to your state. Now you have to apply through your state, because then through the federal government, you get an additional $600 a week. Now that is not going to be taxable. Your state unemployment may be partially of it taxed, but for the federal government, it is not going to be taxed from all that I understand. So, $600 a week, non-taxable from the federal government, is like you earning $1,200 because they're going to take it out, and that is per week. So I just want you to know that if your hours have been reduced or if you're laid off, let me tell you something. Do not be shy about applying for unemployment, because in this day and age, your ego is not your amigo when it comes to you filing for unemployment. It's all online. Nobody will know it. But listen, you all need money just like the rest of the country. So even though you're an educational consultant and you may think that none of this applies to you, you can apply for unemployment. So the first day I did that, I was like, that's the first thing I did was apply for unemployment. So, and I haven't heard anything back. So they are completely backlogged. I think I saw that 13.5 million people have applied for unemployment. But you know what? This is your hard-earned tax money too. So you get in the pot and apply for unemployment. So that's the first thing that all of you all should do. So when we did the poll, like a third of you all had employees. And so let's move on to the next thing, that if you've got employees, the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. And let me tell you something, you talk about confusing. I stayed up all night last week. I fell asleep. I got up at 1:30. I worked till 5:30 in the morning trying to fill out my PPP application when it came up. And of course, they're throwing all this stuff together fast. So I think there's a lot of people that have not really thought it through. But there is a formula to this. So if you have employees, you take your average annual monthly payroll. So whatever your payroll was from last year, you can do 2019, divide it by 12. That's your average monthly payroll. Times that by 2.5. That's how much money you can apply for. Now, self-employed people like me, what you have to do is you have to take your profit and loss from your business, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're taking a withdrawal. Now, if you're included in your payroll, then you would not do this. But like me, I don't pay myself. I take withdrawals. So you take your profit and loss from last year, whatever your profit is. If it's more than $100,000, you can only go up to $100,000. So you would take your $100,000 divided by 12, that's $8,300 and some dollars, times 2.5. You add that to it. That's how much you can apply for in the Paycheck Protection Program. It's a formula. And then you've got all of the backup. I mean, you'll have to send them a payroll summary. You get to add stuff in like your state unemployment you pay, your workers' comp, and you come up with a total. And then that's how much you can apply for. Most of the banks, from what I can tell, you have to have a business checking account with them or a business loan with them in order to apply through them. So like I'm with BB&T, it's online. It was relatively simple. You could work on it and save it. But there are a lot of caveats into it that, like, if you really don't understand your accounting, you may have to, have a conversation with your accountant or your CPA or whoever is helping you. Now, the thing about the Payroll Protection Act, from the origination date of the loan, it has a forgiveness in it. So for the 8 weeks, it forgives up to 75% of that money that you pay back to payroll. So, what you go back and pay your employees. Then 25% of it you can use on rent, you can use on interest on other loans, interest on your mortgage. But this PPP loan is very specific about what you can spend the money on to be forgiven. And if you don't spend it on it, like nobody has ever been able to answer how, like, we're completely shut down in West Virginia. So even if I get this loan, like, am I just to pay my employees to sit at the house? And that's supposedly part of it. Or do I wait till we open back up? So there's a lot of ambiguity about how this whole payroll protection program is going to work. But if you have employees and you're off work, you have got to start working on this PPP. I mean, like I submitted like first day for all of my businesses, right? So for everything that you do, this is very good. And I don't have any idea how long it's going to take to process through the banks. I mean, I think they're overwhelmed and overloaded. So the Payroll Protection Act is that. Then if you have money left that you didn't use for payroll or rent, you can either pay it back to the bank, or then you can finance it over 24 months. It originally started out 10 years. Now they've dropped it down to 24 months. So this is really a nice way to get an infusion of cash into your business. So that's one thing. The next thing is the EIDL loan, like right up there in the corner, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. They came out with the beginning, there was like a $10,000 grant. Like I applied for it the first day too. The EIDL loan, it was $10,000. It did not need to be paid back. And I applied the first day. Now, day before yesterday, I was reading on a senator's blog that is now $1,000 per employee up to 10. Well, I'd already applied, so I don't know if that actually has changed, but if you have not applied for the EIDL loan, you need to apply for that. So that you go to sba.gov. The PPP loan, you have to apply through your bank. So unemployment, you apply through your state unemployment office. The PPP loan, you apply at the bank. The EIDL loan, you apply through the SBA. So those are the things that you really need to understand, okay? So those right now are the most important things that I think we as independent educational consultants should do. Is the file for unemployment, do your paycheck protection plan, and apply for your EIDL loan. And, you know, whichever one comes first, you know, whatever you need, then you can kind of work that out with your accountant, however it is. But it's a really nice way to infuse some cash into your business, because you all, we're going into slow time anyway. I mean, summer is slow. And so, you know, we've got to make it all the way to the fall for cash. And I mean, I don't know how many of you all like that this IEC is like your main source of income, but for me it is. And I don't have anybody else bringing money into my house. So the first thing I thought of was the first day I woke up and all my businesses were shut down is, how in the world am I going to live till then? So the federal government is coming out with these plans. So please make sure that you do that. So those are the 3 things I think that you really need to do. And listen, if these are things that you're really interested in, then please let Krista know in the Q&A, and then we'll delve into them at greater length next time. Okay, the other good news is tax date has been delayed. Now for us here in West Virginia, it has been delayed till July 15th, both state and federal. And I think most of the country has done that. So it also delays filing as well as paying. So that is really a nice way to keep money in your pocket, is that that tax day has been moved. So, I mean, for me, that was really great, because but I have been so bored. I actually have worked on my tax return. So I may be ready to go by April 15th. Who knows? I've been stuck in the house for so long. So, you know, I'm bored when I'm working on my tax return. All right. Next of all, tax rebate. That is, the federal government is going to give, like, they're calling it a tax rebate. You may think of it as a stimulus package. It happened back in 2008. It's happening again. The difference is they're going to give $1,200 per individual, $2,400 per family, and then $500 for any child under 18. And if you have an account set up with the federal government, like if you paid your tax estimates by a debit or a checking account, they're going to put this money right into your account. Now, the difference between the 2008 stimulus, it was taxable. This one in 2020 is not taxable. So that should go straight into your personal checking account. And so, you know, it matters whether you're head of household and all that, but you are going to get that tax rebate directly into your thing. Now, here's what's interesting about this. $600 extra a week in West Virginia, or a $1,200 thing in West Virginia, is a lot of money. Whereas in LA, it might not, but listen, it's going to count for something, maybe help you pay your house payment, your car payment, your rent, whatever, buy food. So that there's nothing you have to do for the tax rebate. They've got all that covered, and it should go straight into your account. If you do not have your personal checking account linked to the federal government, they're going to mail you a check. And from what I understand, that's going to be like 3 to 4 months before you will get that check. So hopefully everybody is like up in the technology age and has done all of their stuff for, online. So that goes straight in. Then the last one down here, the paid sick leave, that matters if you've got employees. Again, there is so much ambiguity about this, but it matters if your employees are off sick with the coronavirus. So if they're taking care of someone, like if their kids are out of school, schools are shut down and they're doing it, they would get paid up to 80 hours of sick leave. And then this increased the Family Medical Leave Act up to 3 months. So that means you would pay your employees, and then there's a tax credit against your 941 deposit. So if you have employees and you go ahead and pay them sick pay if they've got the coronavirus, then you would take that as a credit against your 941. There's probably not a whole lot of you all that one is going to apply to. And there's a caveat in that if you have less than 50 employees a month, and you can say that it would be detrimental for you to pay that, you don't have to pay it. There's just a lot of question about how are you going to prove that it's not going to make your business viable. I mean, to me, if you've been losing money for the last year and a half and you're not going to be able to afford that. So to me, that would be like a profit and loss state with a negative, with a loss. Okay. So those are the main things. There's a whole lot of other stuff in this of like allowing you to pay off student loans for your employees, which I'm going to do for a couple of mine. You can take $100,000 out of your 401k without the penalty. I mean, there is so much in this bill that like I can't even, these were just the highlights, which I felt were directly related to us as IEC. So this was kind of like the highlights that I wanted to hit. But, you know, please let us know which one of these is like the most important or that you do, and then we'll try to do that. So, I mean, we're right now at 3 o'clock. So Cyndy, do you want to like do some Q&A? If anybody needs to drop off, I guess they can just drop off.
Yeah. In fact, I'm just going to quit sharing right now, and that'll just bring us back up to our videos. And I can see there have been quite a lot of business questions come in, and I've been answering some of the admissions questions as we've been going on, and you might see a little 3-year-old walk through here. So, but yeah, we know we're at the top of the hour. We're going to continue to hang on. So those of you that have time and want to join us, otherwise I would say join us next week, next Friday. We're going to do this all over again. We're just hitting the top things on admissions and business. And I hope that there's a little less news on admissions. We've kind of given you the bird's eye view on a lot of things. The AP will already be done, things like that. So, Jamie, let's Krista, let's turn it over. Yeah, let's
Krista. I think Krista's going to do the questions.
Okay.
The biggest thing as far as the business side that everyone is asking for is if they can still apply for unemployment while they're still working with their clients, like their juniors now already.
Well, if you look at the unemployment, it's not actually that you're like completely unemployed, but that you've had a great reduction in income. So I think like the caveat to that is if you have like, I mean, I don't know, my revenue since March 19th has gone down at least 50% or more. Now, those of you all that know me, that come to my boot camp, know that I'm like on a membership basis where I have a monthly auto draft. So I've kind of evened out my cash flow. So I have been making money during this whole time that we've been off, which I love, because that was one thing that drove me crazy, was how to keep my cash flow from going like that. So, but it is greatly reduced because of the tutoring and the test prep that I do. So I went ahead and applied for unemployment. I am still seeing my kids, but it's actually that for the self-employed, it's actually that your revenue has been greatly reduced. So yes, go ahead. And here's another thing. If they don't think you're entitled to it, they will turn you down. So you just apply and then make them decide and turn you down. And then you can always appeal it. But yes, I would definitely go ahead and apply for unemployment. Good question.
Okay. And also, I think they need to understand, because a lot of people are asking about their 1099 independent contractors,
okay,
if they're allowed to claim them, or what about their 1099s?
Okay. And we talk about this in the boot camp so much. 1099s are self-employed individuals just like us. So they are completely on their own. You cannot count them as an employee for you. That 1099 person has to file their own unemployment. They have to do their own PPP. They have to do their own EIDL loan. They are a complete and separate, distinct entity from you. And that's the one thing that I think we blur the line so much with educational consultants, is that, they can't get through their head what's an employee, what's a 1099. So in this whole thing, you do not worry about your 1099 people. They got to worry about their own. So tell them to take a webinar, tell them to figure it out. But no, you don't worry about your 1099. They're their own entity. Great question.
Okay, great. That is a lot about the business side. Now, we have a few questions to clarify the relief as far as with that rebate, if it's capped on these certain economic income levels for families.
So it's up to 75,000, and then it phases out between 75 and 99,000, and then that's different if you're married. I think it phases out over 150. But yes, that is a great question as well. It does phase out.
moving on, if we can move back to a few college planning. And Cyndy, I'm not sure if you have, well, Jamie, I'll go for this because they are talking about a little bit of business as far as what they should apply for, the PPP or the EIDL loan.
Both. I applied for both.
Okay.
So the EIDL, the EIDL loan, is an automatic infusion. And then the PPP, what's nice about it is, you know, it's got the forgiveness. Now, when I filled out my application for BB&T, there was a place on there that asked if I had already applied for that. And had I received the money. So I had applied already for the $10,000. So then when I did my PPP loan, I put that in there, but I had not received the cash. So it was very electronic. So right up in the corner, it added that $10,000 on to the amount that I was able to apply for the PPP loan, right? So you apply for both. Apply for all three: unemployment, the EIDL loan, and the PPP. Just cover all your bases.
Now, Cyndy, jumping back to you as far as college planning, a few people were confused and had a question about the double deposits. They wanted to know how would you address that with your clients?
Yeah, and that's a really, really good question. I'm not encouraging double deposits. We all know what happens. We all tell our students and families don't double deposit, but it happens. So you go about it by going from an ethical perspective and how it impacts the college. I always tell the students that you need to make a decision. And that's the key thing, is you need to make a decision, put your heart where your money is, and go forward and don't look back. And that's one of my biggest complaints about wait lists, because once the students put their heart going forward and then they get this call that says, oh yeah, we've got a place for you. Like, oh, now they're getting torn. So, but it is, if a college is extending the deadline and they don't know if their financial aid is going to come, then they are going to have to do something. You can't go to put down a deposit at school. You're still waiting on a financial aid, knowing that if you don't get it, you can't go there. So I would just talk to colleges. You know, your best bet is let them know, I want to go to you. You're my first choice. I always call it the first choice strategy. I'm going to come to your college. If you give me more money, this is where I'm going to come. You can only do that with one school. Unless they turn you down, then you go to your next school. But if I can't get enough, then I need to deposit someplace else. So I would recommend, talking and going to the colleges, but because they can poach students, even students that are going to be on campuses, colleges can come back and, theoretically offer better offers to students. And that might happen more this next year than ever has happened in the past, because they're trying to fulfill their classes. And I think we're also going to see a lot more colleges close over the next few years. I can tell you this,
too. I think it must be out on the internet that this is a strategy that people could do, because 22 years of being an educational consultant, it's rare that I ever have this conversation. And I feel like every senior I have, which I think I've got 100 and some seniors this year, every senior I've had is like, well, we're going to double deposit. And I always be like, okay, from my standpoint, I just want to tell you it's highly unethical in the college admissions world, but if that's what you think you're going to do. So I feel like this is a strategy that's out there, because I've never had so many people ask me about it. So I think that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a bit surprised at all.
And there was a few questions a lot of consultants were bringing up as far as where universities are going test optional for next year. How are you handling that with your clients now? Are you recommending that they still turn in those tests if they have great scores?
Yes, and that's a really good question. I mean, it applies not only to just this case of some, the class of 2021, but test optional in general. And if students have good scores, they should absolutely use them. Just because the school is test optional doesn't mean you can't turn in your scores, and it doesn't mean your scores aren't going to be counted. Same thing for subject test or AP. The nice thing about when they go test optional, and especially when they go blanket test optional, I mean, in some schools, either you choose test optional and you don't set scores and they look at all this stuff, or you choose you're not doing test optional and then they are looking at your scores. When, like, UC Berkeley said, we're not going to look at your test scores, but we're not required test scores, but they are going to look at your test scores. So it just becomes extra brownie points. So if you have good test scores, then you can highlight them. That's one way to make your application stand out. Same thing with subject tests or AP. And if you don't, then they're not going to hurt you. So all it can do is help. So I saw a couple comments. Lisa Marka Robbins from Ohio, who is a test prep, she recommends the same thing. So thanks, Lisa, for pointing that out. And I agree. Just don't be afraid to have students submit their test scores if they're good. Now, some of them aren't, and they're not going to want to submit them, and that's great too. So.
Hey, Krista, I just noticed there was a good question on there that somebody says, I'm talking whether self-employed or a sole proprietor. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. It's just really a matter of like how it passes through. For example, all of my companies are an LLC, limited liability corporation, and I elect to be taxed as a sole proprietor. So don't get confused with the lingo of it. Because the majority of you are going to either be a Schedule C, right? And that if you're a sole proprietor, you're Schedule C. If you're an LLC, you're a Schedule C on your tax return. So don't get the lingo mixed up, and then don't lose track of the fact that for now they've changed this whole unemployment thing. That it's like for self-employed people, they've moved it more to a reduction of income. Self-employed people have never, ever been allowed to do unemployment. Never,
right,
never,
right,
never.
Right.
So when I heard that, I was like, I'm on there. I'm doing it. So I think that was a great question that I saw that I was going down through here. So.
And I think a few people need just confirmation. They want to know, what if they are a sole proprietor? Can they apply for the PPP if they have no employees?
Yes, and what they have to do is take their profit and loss, their income statement, right? Because they're employees themselves, right? I mean, this is how they make money. So they've got to have a way to live. I mean, us self-employed people have to have a way to live. So the federal government is realizing that. So from what all, and I mean, listen, you all, I've done more webinars with, I mean, that's all I do, but you all realize I'm single and don't have a life, so I do stuff like this. But you take your profit and loss, your income statement. So like whatever your net income is, then divide that by 12. Now it can't go over 100,000. So if you made 100,000, then you just take 100,000 and divide by 12. But you're going to have to give proof. Like me, I submitted my profit and loss statement, or you could submit your tax return or whatever. You're just going to have to show proof that that's how you make your money. So if you take a withdrawal, now, like my brother is a sub S corporation. He takes a salary, a paycheck through his sub S. He would include his income in the payroll summary. But if you're like me, I pay my employees, I take a withdrawal, then you're taking your withdrawals from your net income. So you have to do that with your profit and loss. That's how you prove it. But yes, you can apply as far as I know. If it's just you, yourself, and you, yes.
And that's why I have Jamie on there. We're doing this together.
No, because then what you got to do is then you got to take 75% of it, right? You could pay back to yourself. And then the 25% you pay your rent. So not only did I do my average monthly payroll for my employees, I did my average monthly withdrawal for myself, put them together. That's how much I applied for the PPP. The EIDL loan, just that immediate $10,000 is just easy. It takes you like 3 minutes to do that. It's at sba.gov. As soon as you go there, right at the top says apply for the emergency disaster loan.
And be nice to the banks when you're going through and doing this.
It's because they're just as confused as anybody else. And I mean, I kind of got up that morning and I was like, somebody is going to make a lot of money out of this act. And so I was like, okay, I'll make myself a pro at it. And then, you know, if people want to hire me business, I got a lot of people that I work with, and, you know, I mean, I like, once I figured out how to do the PPP application, like I did my brother's, I did everything. Then next thing you know, my friends are calling me like, will you help me fill out my PPP? So I was like, yeah. So, I mean, I figured out how to do it. And, but, you know, I'll think about it. I was an accountant for 20 years. I mean, it's right up my alley. But I'm going to tell you what, the CPAs and the lawyers are going to make a lot of money out of interpreting this law.
Yeah. Yep.
I would hate to still be in the CPA business, right?
Yeah, and there are so many unanswered questions, and there are going to continue to be questions we don't have answers for. I was singing questions about the test, the AP test, and accommodations for special students, you know, with special needs, and accommodations,
and the business stuff is changing every day too, because originally the PPP, you advertised over 10 years, whatever you didn't pay back. Now it's 2. And then originally the $10,000 is $10,000, and now they're saying it's $1,000. So I think that as they go through, you're changing. But from what I understand from a friend of mine who is a loan officer at BB&T, it's all given out on a first come first basis, kind of like financial aid. So procrastination in this whole thing will cost you money. So just, if you're locked up in the house this weekend, just do some stuff to help yourself, help your family. Like I say, you owe it to yourself, your clients, and your kids to stay in business. I mean, that should be your number one concern right now. The colleges, and they're all going to figure their stuff out. But right now, just focus on your business. And I mean, it's a good time to reevaluate, like look at your pricing strategy. Look at all your expenses. Is there a way you can cut? So, you know, like in accounting, we realize it's not the gross, it's the net. So if your gross has gone down, then you can decrease your expenses and keep your net income about the same. But you're really going to have to go through and, you know, maybe get another proposal for all your, you know, insurance or your property insurance. But, I can tell you this, I've got 3 people who are tutoring online, and because I don't have like staff that I'm paying, I mean, it's like, you just don't know how much money, you know, payroll eats up your money. But what makes the world go round? Payroll. You see that right now. They're trying to preserve people's jobs, and the federal government is going to reward you for pulling back your employees. So like every one of my employees will come back. Like, you know, whenever this is over, they all come back. What am I going to pay them with? The PPP loan, because I have had not enough money coming in. So that's why all of this stuff is here, so that when this is over, you put your people back to work, and it's a good thing. So like I say, don't let your ego get in the way. Well, I'm not going to draw employment. I'm like, whew, I'll get it. So this whole act is completely different. So whatever your thinking was, as you know, how do I do that? It's out the window. This is a whole new ball of wax.
Well, and I hope you all have benefited and enjoyed the session today, our Friday forum. We'll be back next Friday, same time, same place, same format. We'll tweak it to make it better and better. We're all learning right along with you guys, right along with the colleges, right along with the business, right along with everybody else. So we appreciate your inputs and your thoughts and suggestions. And go to, Jamie has her website. It's jamiedickinson.com, right?
And then the IEC Advisors is iecadvisors.com. So,
perfect.
So where I do the business consulting for consultants.
Yes. So, so check that out, and I'll be posting blogs, this PowerPoint, and updates on cindymcdonald.com. And the reason I have that is because Jamie told me to do it.
Yeah, Cindy came to my boot camp. I'm like, girl, you got to have your own thing going here. So, and then I see there's a lot of alumni from the boot camp out there. So Krista and I give you a big shout out, and hopefully everything's going good with your business. So don't drop your fees. Please don't. Please don't stab me in the heart by dropping your fees. I'm thinking about upping mine. So just don't drop your fees. Don't contribute. Don't contribute more to this crisis. You are professionals. I doubt seriously that the CPAs and the lawyers are dropping their fees. I bet it's going up. So, you know, we're pros. Keep your money up there.
Absolutely. So we hope you found this useful. Hopefully you'll join us next week, same time, same place, and let your friends know. So we're going to end it for now, and we'll pull in questions, and we'll have questions to start with next week too. Okay?
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.